Now, as demand for telehealth and virtual consultations has grown, the way healthcare and GP visits are delivered has changed dramatically. MedTech startup Wavelength has been at the forefront of that shift and recently partnered with telehealth service Swiftdoc. Co-founder Dr. John Bethel is on Skype now to tell us what the partnership means for Wavelength, patients and doctors. Hi, John, how are you?
Hi, good, thanks.
John, let's kick things off very simply. Just explain to the viewers what Wavelength does.
So Wavelength is a business that my co-founder and I founded in 1999, and we're an end-to-end recruitment service for doctors. So that's all we do, and we've, as I say, we've been doing it for 21 years. We have about 500,000 doctor hours a year that we account for. We've placed about 32,000 doctors over the years. So it's a pretty traditional recruitment business. The main function, of course, in the past has been to put doctors into surgeries or into hospitals, and of course, that's a model that's starting to shift.
So I think you've got more than 110,000 doctors on your books over that time, and I suppose it was normally sort of a little bit of recruitment, a little bit of placement, but telehealth has meant that, if you're in Perth, you don't have to just be a doctor in Perth anymore. How much has this transformed what's going on in medicine?
Well, it's been a growing trend. I mean, the technology has been around, and there's been a lot of experimentation about different ways of putting doctors and patients in touch with each other. But the advent of COVID has really accelerated that process in a very dramatic way. The main obstacle to people deciding to use that kind of service, particularly the doctors, has just been lack of familiarity with it. But when you have a situation like COVID, where suddenly doctors don't necessarily want to have their patients coming into their clinic for obviously from a risk perspective, and neither do patients want to sit in a waiting room. It's sort of really accelerated the uptake. So the technology is now sort of kicked in, and we see this all over the world. I mean, I'm actually based in the life sciences innovation space in Europe, and here in Barcelona alone, I can think of about 5 or 6 companies that are doing different types of telehealth, and they've all reported a massive uptake in the amount of usage of their services as a result of COVID.
Wow. John, run us through the partnership with Swiftdoc. How's it going to work, and what does it bring to the Wavelength business?
Well, because of the increase in the use of telehealth, we've had a bit of experience with this over time. We've been partnering with some telcos and some governments, but we could see as far back as 2 or 3 years the writing on the wall in terms of disruption to our industry, and the fact that increasingly we were going to have to find some other ways to deploy our doctors. So telehealth has been something that's been on our map for a while. And we encountered Swiftdoc as a company about a year ago and started discussions with them then. But in fact, Richard McMahon, the founder, who's a doctor much like myself, who's gone into business, has been someone that we placed. We actually brought him over from the UK about 10 years ago, and he's still at the same practice. But when we saw the product that he's built, it really stood out to us because of its ease of use and its doctor friendliness. And I think that really comes from the fact that he's a doctor himself, so he understands the process of interacting with patients and potentially some of the benefits and limitations of doing it remotely. So for us, it just became a very obvious fit. We have, as you've already mentioned, 115,000 doctors that we want to provide a service to and give them access to patients. And for Richard, who's very much a startup, he's looking for access to market, and I think that's turned out to be a perfect marriage.
As you look at the telehealth space, from a doctor's perspective, where do you see the biggest potential and the biggest gains for patients?
Well, patients love it. If you actually look at the stats, anytime you give the patients the option to to use telehealth. They absolutely love the convenience. They love the fact they don't have to commute to see their doctor. In terms of the biggest gains, there's lots of parts of the medical arena that struggle to get to see their doctors. So if you think of fly in, fly out patients, of course Australia is a country that has a massive maldistribution of doctors to population. So we've got large areas of remote medicine, and those are the sort of places where patients have typically really struggled to see doctors. And this gives them access to health without having to travel miles and miles to get to see their doctors. So, this country is particularly well set up for that. But I think what you'll find is the behavior has shifted across the board, and most people will now prefer to see their doctor online for smaller matters like getting work cover slips and having prescriptions filled. It just doesn't make sense to have to go and sit in a waiting room to have that kind of transaction happen. I mean, if you actually look at the numbers, over 70% of patient-doctor interactions don't involve physical contact. There's just no need for that. So the sort of the opportunity there is huge.
Dr. John Bethell from Wavelength, great to have you on the show. Thank you for your insights, and take care over there in Barcelona. Adios.
I will, yes.